What's up, guys? In this video, I want to talk about what the numbers actually look like to maintain and operate a really basic $100,000 a year practice for PT and OT specifically. If you haven't seen my video on how to use the CMS Physician Fee Schedule Lookup tool, go check it out. But the numbers we're going to be using for these scenarios are going to be averaging $100 a visit, Medicare only, outpatient, Medicare Part B specifically. So this could be PTOT, SOP is a little bit different, so I'm not going to talk about that in this video. But what would something like that look like? If you use the Physician Fee Schedule Lookup tool, you can run some numbers and you can see that on average for a typical plan of care, you're going to be averaging about $100 a visit in collections. So the initial eval is going to be higher, the follow-up care typically lower. You have to take into account sequestration and the MPPR, which are two big reductions on pretty much all claims. But after that, let's estimate $100 a visit as collected revenue. So if you're seeing 10 visits, not 10 patients, 10 visits a week at $100 reimbursement, that's $1,000 a week. We bump that to 20 visits in a week, that's $2,000 a week. In a typical 50-week year, we're going to take 2 weeks vacation, so we're working 50 weeks. We've got $100,000, right? $2,000 a week, 50 weeks in a year, $100,000 in revenue. Okay, so what does that look like in terms of volume, patient visits? Well, I just said 20 visits a week, but how many new patients do I need to get? So if you're typically running a 3-visit-a-week plan of care, we're looking at 7 active patients. That would be 21 visits. But most of us aren't going to be treating patients 3 times a week, through the entire plan of care. We're going to have a tapering plan of care, starting with 3 times a week, going to 2 times a week, going to 1 time a week. So let's round up and let's say we need 10 active patients on our caseload to average 20 visits a week. Now, our objective is how do we find 10 active patients to get on our caseload? And what does that look like in terms of how many new patients a week do I need? So again, we need to look at some averages. Let's take, for example, an average 6-week plan of care. If you get 3 new patients starting week number 1, then you get another 3 patients starting week number 2. Week number 3, we're almost at our caseload. We need 1 more new patient. Now, obviously, you're not always going to get 3. Sometimes you're going to get 5. Sometimes you're going to get none. But the idea is you can see how if you start to work these numbers and put these numbers down on paper, you can start to understand, okay, so I need some weeks of 3 new patients, some weeks of 1 or 2 new patients. If my patients are on a tapering plan of care and then as they discharge, I'm going to be looking at getting more new patients. This is where you start to project real financials for a real practice. And then of course, on top of that, you say, okay, well, if I'm running $100,000 in revenue on a year, if I don't want to mess with any billing and I outsource 100% of my billing and collections, what is that cost going to look like? Well, it's going to be somewhere in the range of $5,000 to $10,000 that you're going to be paying somebody to handle billing and collections. If you want to outsource marketing, what is that going to look like? That's where I would tell you to talk to some of the experts in the area, see what Facebook ads, what Google ads, what you're going to do for marketing. Consider the cost of printing referral pads and some other stuff, maybe running some workshops. There's lots of opportunities there. But as you start to whittle down what the total revenue is going to be, you start to bring costs in, you might realize, hey, 20 visits a week isn't very much. I think I could handle more. I'd like to do maybe another 5 visits a week. What does something like that look like? Okay, so if I'm going to bump up by 5 visits a week, $500 a week more, what can I use with that extra money? Do I put that into a savings account, an investment vehicle? Do I use that to reinvest into my business? These are the creative aspects of what we do as a business owner, even as a single owner operator that is treating the caseload and doing the business development. Like, this is the stuff that personally I live for. This is what I love. This is what I'm passionate about. But for you, I want you guys to be able to see what real numbers look like. And I think anybody out there could easily run 100,000 in revenue, 20 patient visits on the conservative side. And when I say conservative, what I mean is relatively low reimbursement, no value adds, no upsells, no hybrid services. You know, that would just be gravy on top of it. But just think about that. 20 visits a week puts 100,000 in revenue into your bank account. Imagine that compared to, you know, the classic outpatient, maybe outpatient orthopedic PT who's earning $35 an hour, right? Seeing probably twice to 2.5 times that volume at the low end. Just some crazy numbers. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next video. Let me know if this was helpful. Subscribe to the channel and post your questions on YouTube so I can have ideas to produce better content for you. I'll catch you next time.